Minnesota has won 5 bowl games in the last 6 years, with the lone exception being the 2020 COVID season. Is 2024 a year where they can extend that streak? Or, with the dismantling of the Big Ten West and the addition of 4 new teams to the conference, are the Golden Gophers going to take a small step back due to a more difficult schedule? Taking a look at that schedule, North Carolina at home is actually a really tough game for Minnesota to start out the year with. Some people are picking Minnesota to win this game. The current spread actually does have the Golden Gophers favored by just under a field goal, but North Carolina is going to be one of the better teams in the ACC this season. It's not by any means a guaranteed win for Minnesota. If anything, I think North Carolina probably should be favored here. That's not to say Minnesota won't win, but I think it's a lot tougher for them to than a lot of people are expecting as of right now. Finishing out the non-conference schedule with Rhode Island and Nevada, both should be pretty easy games though. Not really much to worry about there. However, the kickoff to Big Ten play is going to be tough. Iowa at home is going to be a very difficult game. The Hawkeyes are going to have an excellent defense once again this season, and it's going to be real difficult for Minnesota to put points on the board in this game. Obviously, Iowa doesn't score much, but most of the games they don't need to. A road trip to Michigan just makes the schedule even more difficult. Michigan's a tough team to predict this year because of how much talent they lost and the ongoing NCAA investigation, where the punishments could end up affecting their season depending on when they are levied. USC at home is also going to be a really tough game. The Trojans are going to have an excellent offense. We'll have to wait and see on the defense whether or not they can actually improve. But regardless, with their offense, USC is going to be favored in this game, and it's going to be tough for the Golden Gophers to keep up. A road trip to UCLA before their first bye week, which is pretty late in the season, really, is going to be a pretty tough game. It's a long road trip. As far as talent goes, these teams are pretty comparable. UCLA does have a new coach in Deshaun Foster, as their previous one was hired away to be the Ohio State Buckeyes offensive coordinator. UCLA is going to be an okay team, but this is a winnable game for Minnesota, but I don't think they're quite going to be favored in it. Out of the bye week, things do get a little bit easier in the next 3 game stretch with Maryland at home and Illinois on the road. Minnesota is pretty comparable as far as overall talent goes to both of those teams, so I'd say there's a decent chance that they win at least one of those 2 games, maybe both if they get lucky. A road trip to Rutgers, however, is going to be pretty tough. Rutgers is definitely a team that could be on the rise this season. They're going to be a ground and pound team, really just run the ball over and over and over. And I'm not quite sure Minnesota's going to be able to keep up with that style of play, especially on the road. And following their second bye week, both Penn State and Wisconsin, very talented teams. Both of these games are going to be incredibly difficult. It's really tough to see Minnesota winning either of them. So overall, they've got 7 home games and 5 away games, with 4 of their opponents being ranked in the rank and file top 25, giving Minnesota a schedule difficulty of 5.5 out of 10. So moving on to the prediction, we do have North Carolina winning that opening game. Like I said, if Minnesota wants to make a bowl game, they're probably going to need to win that one, because when you look at the schedule as a whole, North Carolina and UCLA are really those 2 games that we have them losing that if they can flip around would get them to a bowl game. The other 6, Iowa, Michigan, USC, Rutgers, Penn State, Wisconsin, it's really tough to see Minnesota pulling off an upset in any of those games. So unfortunately, not winning the North Carolina game, I think, is going to set a bad tone for the season for Minnesota. They'll get those 2 other non-conference wins with Rhode Island and Nevada pretty easily, but the start to Big Ten play is very tough. Like I said, they could maybe win the UCLA game, but we do have them starting 0-4 in the conference. Out of that first bye week, Maryland and Illinois are both winnable games. We do have the Golden Gophers picking up both of those wins to move to 4-5. But those last 3 games are all really tough, and unfortunately for Minnesota, we weren't able to pick them in any of them, dropping their record to 4-8. Now the projected record by adding up all of these percentages sits at 4.8 and 7.2, so it does favor potentially picking up a 5th win somewhere. Could be North Carolina, could be UCLA. That'd probably be my pick if I had to choose between the 2 and have Minnesota finish at 5-7. Now, FPI has the Golden Gophers at 5.3 and 6.7, so a little bit closer to that 6-win mark, but they also do have them finishing under 500 with only a 1% chance to make the college football playoff. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe, and we will see you in our next video.